Back on the Boulevard Thursday, May 2nd, as always, here to prove to you there is no such thing as football season. We are presented by the Believe Network. Big night here on the Boulevard. We have a very special guest joining the show for a jam-packed, half-hour-long interview. And if you haven't seen the title, I'll give you a hint. His name is 2 letters long. And I'm here with the producer, director, and owner of Studio Z, Chris Zook. Zook, last year around this time, your Sea Dragons were already home on the couch, and now it's only week 6.
Mm-hmm.
You have nice Sea Dragons colors on tonight, I must say.
Yep. You had to go there, huh?
I always got to remind you when things aren't that great for DC right now.
Well, the good thing is my team is undefeated, not like yours.
But defeated by DC. Well, on tonight's show, we have the top 4 teams in our power poll against the bottom 4 teams in the poll. So that means we have some heavy favorites and some double-digit spreads out there for the first time this season. Are we overvaluing Birmingham and St. Louis? I thought maybe a couple weeks ago, Birmingham a little overvalued, and they go out and cover last week against Houston. But now is it St. Louis's turn to kind of take a step back? We'll break all that down. Seems like the books haven't adjusted to a few key data points that we want to get into here. All signs point to it being Matt Corral week. We haven't had an official announcement yet, but this is a spinning quarterback carousel in Birmingham. And speaking of quarterbacks, you guessed it, AJ McCarron will be back on the Boulevard tonight. We talked about everything from midseason evaluations in the UFL to the X's and O's of the Battlehawks offense, so stay tuned for that. We promise you'll learn a thing or two like you always do with AJ. Wrap things up with our Week 6 best bets and a quick look at DFS with the People's Gambler. So where are we headed for this week's edition of the Battle of the Brand Store, which will be back on the road? That's another thing we'll get to. We're going to YouTube, Twitter, X, and Facebook tonight. If you're with us, drop us a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, hit us with a retweet, and share with all your friends if you're here. Zook, let's take a quick glance at our Week 6 UFL standings. If you're with us on podcast, Birmingham continues to be undefeated at the midseason point, top of the USFL conference at 5-0. Michigan is above 500 at 3-2. Memphis at 1-4 with a head-to-head win over the Roughnecks at 1-4. On the XFL side of things, Battlehawks are now 3-0 in the conference with wins over every team on that side, 4-1 overall. San Antonio 4-1 overall. DC drops to 2-3, and Arlington still winless at 0-5. So let's hop right into our games. We kick things off noon Eastern. This will be an 11 a.m. local kick in Memphis. It's the sequel between the Stallions and the Showboats. Birmingham, the 11.5-point road favorite here after they downed Memphis by 19 in the first meeting. Total sitting at 43 here. Forecast looking like 84 degrees and mostly cloudy. 30% chance of thunderstorms and some light winds in Memphis. So let's break this one down. I want to start with Matt Corral and the Stallion offense. Assuming Corral starts, we think he will, with Skip Holtz taking turns here. In Week 3's 33-14 win against Memphis, which we just touched on, Adrian Martinez got the go. He went 18 for 28, 334 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. He added a score on the ground. But assuming it's Corral's turn now, I'm looking forward to seeing Matt string together a full uninterrupted game after coming off that rain delay win in D.C. And no matter which way you look at it, significant advantage for Birmingham. Stallions, only team in the UFL who run more than they pass. It's kind of hard to believe. And Skip Holtz is behind that. He is pounding the rock on 55% of all snaps. And when it comes to this Memphis defense, they couldn't stop a parked car right now. Holes opening up. Every running back seems to have a great day against this defense. It's just been very poor. And you would like to think that in the second game, a team can bounce back a little bit. I'm not exactly sure this is the spot. I think offensively, and we'll get into this, Memphis can play better in Game 2 than Game 1, but defensively, it's going to remain a struggle. I don't buy into the narrative that some Stallions fans and just UFL fans in general are pushing, that Matt Corral is somehow way worse than Adrian Martinez. I do not buy that. Matt Corral gutted out that win against DC. Yes, he had a few early mistakes, but it's recency bias, and you're forgetting the opponents that Adrian Martinez went up against. Houston and Memphis? We're going to call the guy the league MVP against those defenses? Matt Corral has had to do it against DC, and that's really been his only start. I mean, he had the full game against Arlington, but that was a long time ago. So think about the Memphis defense. They gave up 160 on the ground and 5 touchdowns last week. Yeah, 5 rushing touchdowns. In 5 games so far for Memphis, they've given up 33 times. They let San Antonio drop 20 on them in the fourth quarter back in week 2. So I don't know what the future looks like for Showboat's defensive coordinator, Carnell Lake here, but it doesn't look like they're going to turn it around anytime soon. And you look at Birmingham's backfield outside of the quarterback position. CJ Marable looking to return after he missed last week for personal reasons. Ricky Person and Larry Roundtree did just fine in his absence. I think much like the quarterback situation here, Birmingham is just deep, and all 3 of these running backs are really interchangeable. I do expect Marable and Person to get the rotation against Memphis since Roundtree is a fairly new signing. But I saw a tweet the other day, and I got to call it out. People are too simple-minded saying, oh, Birmingham is the 5-0 USFL champ, Arlington the 0-5 XFL champ. Tell me which league is better. What are we doing here? Are we really pushing that narrative when the Birmingham Stallions get 60% of their offensive production from players who never played a snap in the USFL the last 2 years? These are new additions. And yes, Birmingham is the class of the conference, but we're not doing that. We're not doing that. Absolutely not. This is a new Birmingham team, same coaching staff, I'll give them that. But they haven't quite been tested. They were tested against DC, but they haven't quite been tested to the level that they will be coming up here at the end of the season, including this week. Large edge to the Birmingham offense here. I think they drop 20 by half again. They're going to ride a strong ground game. And if they do feel like letting Corral drop back and sling it a little bit, quarterbacks are completing 72% of their passes against this Memphis defense. You watch the Memphis tape against St. Louis, they were gashed, absolutely gashed by AJ McCarron and company. So, again, no faith in the Memphis defense here, and that's why I'm kind of foreshadowing the over might be a good play in this case. Let's flip sides of the ball. More of the same for Memphis offensively. It's a very grim outlook. And Case Cookus should be back after a week off. I think he, maybe took some rest, got to cough up some dirt, pick some turf out of his skin, and now he's going to be back. But the bad news for Case is that the Showboats just gave up 7 sacks last week to Michigan, and this continues to be the worst offensive line in the UFL. They have given up 25 sacks in 5 games. So Birmingham has been a little more quiet on the defensive front. Only 1 sack for the Stallions in the last 2 weeks. That surprised me. But overall, the defense did look dominant against Houston. I think just because this is the second game, we will see a better effort from the Showboats offense. Nobody has scored more than 18 on Birmingham this season. So that's a tall task. Also, Birmingham hasn't given up a rushing touchdown all year. Not a single rushing touchdown has been scored on this defense. So I think Showboats probably land right around the mid-teens. Maybe they get to 18 or so, but I know they're going to be down 2 scores early, so Case Cookus is going to be forced to throw this thing 45 to 50 times. He's going to take sacks, and he's going to get picked off, but I think he has a couple of big plays in his pocket mixed in there, and they can't run the ball to help him. Less than 55 average yards per game on the ground. I mean, they've only scored 1 rushing touchdown, so I expect a ton of targets for these Memphis wide receivers. We'll see what they do with them. We've seen some flashes from a guy like David Davis and Jonathan Adams, Vinny Papali. So it's a respectable enough receiving core. But the Stallions for me, Zook, are the runaway pick here. I think they're set to drop 30 again. Memphis, get me a score or two. I think that's fair to say, and maybe a couple Matt Conklin field goals. This is enough to make a run at the over 43. I think the total is way too low here. I'd rather take the over than lay 11.5 with Birmingham, assuming that they're going to rest some starters in the second half like they always seem to do, and you might leave things open for a weird backdoor cover of some sort. So, Zook, we know who you're taking here, but the question is, do they cover, I guess, at this point?
We may get to that later. I'm definitely taking the ponies.
Yeah.
They're just like I said last week, I'm not betting against the money line or not taking a money line until they lose a game, and I don't think Memphis has it in them to overtake them. So,
who will be the first one to score 20 on this Birmingham defense? Like, the obvious answer is St. Louis, right?
We'll see next week, right?
Yeah, you don't think it's going to be this week. So, we've been kind of waiting for this Memphis offense. I mean, I know Cookus has it in him eventually, but it's just he doesn't have any help. He's not getting any help up front. They're not putting drives together. And
it really comes more down to that Stallions defense.
Yeah.
They're going to make them look silly, I think. I think you're going to see a lot of turnovers.
Yeah, and keep an eye on JoJo Tillery. Pulled his hamstring. He's a starting safety for Birmingham. Pulled his hamstring on that run back. Don't think he's going to play. So Birmingham will need somebody to step up in that secondary. He's been a mainstay in that defense. But, yeah, we're going Birmingham chalk. I like the over. Let's head directly north to the Lou. Our Saturday doubleheader taking us to the Battle Home at the Battle Dome. It's the Roughnecks and the Battlehawks. Cacaw favored by 12.5 here. Massive spread. The total is our highest of the weekend at 47.5. Forecast is once again Cardinals outside, Battlehawks inside. What are we doing? Make it make sense for me here. Why are we having Cardinals games with a nice, sunny, bright, shining forecast out in Busch Stadium, but for the Battlehawks, we're inside playing at the same time? Can we schedule something back to back here, maybe? Have fans go to both? Anyway, we'll save that for AJ later. And speaking of AJ, how about this Battlehawks offense against the Houston D? It's crazy to say that the St. Louis offense has actually exceeded my expectations. I didn't think that would be possible because they were so lofty already coming in the preseason. So I don't know if folks thought they would be this efficient, frankly. This is trending towards best offense in spring football history kind of numbers. They're already up over 30 points a game. That's tops in the league. And they take care of the ball. Turnover margin, +3 so far. That's best in the league. So the only red flag that I see in this game for the Battlehawks this weekend, and if you're betting this game, you need to know this. St. Louis was missing 3 starting offensive linemen in practice this week. Now, we just got an update right before the show with the depth chart that 2 of those guys, I believe their right guard and right tackle, are out. Steven Gonzalez was the third. He looks to be in, but didn't practice, so definitely hobbled. And if you watch the DC game, you could see, I think it was their last touchdown, the Sailors touchdown. He got tabletop, just flipped upside down. It was a low cut block by the D end, and he ended up basically standing on his head. And that's not good when you're 350 pounds. So that didn't look like a good injury. Steven was on his feet and walking off the field. Got a chance to chat with him in the post game, and he said he was feeling okay. But looks like he's going to go and tough it out. That's the Penn State Nittany Lion in him right there. But, St. Louis carries 9 offensive linemen. I think they're going to have 7 of them here, so they should be okay. But I think Houston might be able to take advantage of this if they play it right. Think about it. Guys like Chris Odom and Reuben Foster, certainly capable pass rushers. And, hey, if you're an Alabama fan, you're going to like this one. AJ McCarron going up against Reuben Foster. That's a little throwback one for Roll Tide country. So I think there's a possibility here that St. Louis can get up 20 in the first half. And I'm serious. I'm not even kidding. They're just that good. They have just so much efficiency on that offensive side of the ball, and they're so quick hitting. I think they can get 20 in the first half. They can carry some momentum into the second half and probably finish this game with Manny Wilkins if it turns into a blowout again. But I'm actually leaning towards maybe a little bit more of a challenging day than most of you expect for the St. Louis offense. You have the offensive line injuries, plus the fact that since the Michigan loss, they've just continued to get better. That in any league doesn't seem to hold up. It's a long season. You can do that in the playoffs. We saw it with Arlington, how they just kept getting better at the end of the season. But, I mean, to say that St. Louis isn't going to eventually peak, valley a little bit, and then probably peak again in the playoffs would be crazy. So we got to find that valley as bettors, and we got to find where is that going to be, because you're sandwiched right here in between your two biggest games of the year. You go on the road to D.C., you go on the road to Birmingham, and plop right in the middle is the Houston Roughnecks. So really all that means is they're going to score 27 instead of 45. So take from it what you will. You might want to sell off, though. Some St. Louis stock this week. I know we saw them last year against Vegas in a very similar spot. Actually, AJ was out in that game, so a little different, but Nick Tiano came in, and it was a little bit of a struggle for them offensively. I think that game went into overtime, and it came down to the shootout-style two-point conversions. Just looking at the schedule, I don't think that – I mean, think about it. They scored 45 points against their biggest rival on the road last week, and they did that without Darius Shepard. They did that with kind of playing with their food in the red zone in the first quarter. So, I mean, that was a hell of a performance. I just don't know if they could top it this week. But when you flip sides of the ball, Houston's offense has been lost. They've only touched 20 points once this entire season, and that was on a late garbage time touchdown in Ford Field against Michigan. They're the lowest scoring team in the league, 15.2 points per game, and they're bad on third down, just 35%. Mark Thompson has been a complete non-factor for this offense after being hyped up as a potential league MVP, and I know he's been dealing with the injury. It's probably not all on him, but it's just not even worth talking about at this point. This has been a whole lot of Reed, Sinnett, and you know, he's been out there down by multiple scores, trying to do everything he can and rally, and that's not what they're built for. It's not what the Roughnecks offense is looking to do. C.J. Johnson said it many times. Our offense starts and ends with Mark Thompson in the run game, and here they are having to throw it around 50 times. So they're built to run the ball, but they just haven't been able to keep games close enough to do so. So now you're up against a unit in the Battlehawks defense who has been elite. Number one in total defense, number one in pass defense, number one in interceptions, and they're even top 3 against the run. So outside of a few moments in the DC game and maybe that win against Arlington, you know, for Houston, this team really hasn't shown me anything to put any faith in them offensively. And but I still do think 12.5 is a little high here, because I think the Houston defense can get some pressure on AJ and kind of hang around. But I'm really all over this under, I guess is what I'm getting at with this handicap here. Expecting a little bit of a down week from their own standard for these offenses. And again, sort of a weird spot for St. Louis. Something like, I don't know, 26-15. Battlehawks wouldn't surprise me here. And it's crazy to say a team could win by 11 and still have a down week. But, you know, compared to how good they've been, this is just a massive total. You got Houston 4-1 on the under. And guess what was the one? My best bet. So here we go again. I think St. Louis is going to have to drop like 33 for me to even be sweating this. Are they capable of doing that? Of course they are, but I don't know. I just don't see it this week. It's very hard to ask them to just keep raising the bar and keep getting better and better, especially after that performance in D.C. So the Battlehawks are going to be the pick for me here, Zook. Fun fact, this is the highest penalized team in the league versus the lowest penalized team in the league. Can you guess which one's which, Zook? Penalties don't lie, right?
That's correct. I'm going to go with Vegas on this one at St. Louis minus 1,000. So we'll go.
That'll be in your parlay this week.
We'll take St. Louis. I think they might be right. They're just better on both sides of the ball. I mean, there's not much to say. This is a no-brain pick.
12.5 is a lot, I think.
12.5 is
spread.
a lot. And I don't do this much, but I tend to agree with you. It's going to be a little lower scoring than you would think.
Yeah.
I still think they're 2-touchdown favorite. But that
Yeah,
offensive line thing you talked about earlier is very concerning.
it's tough.
Does AJ have the mobility with two offensive linemen out?
Yeah, Houston has some guys that can get after it. They're certainly one of the more athletic defensive fronts, and yeah, I just think even if Houston plays a mediocre game, which like what is mediocre to their standard, right? Like even if they're off their game a little bit, nobody cares because they're going to win, and then we're going to get to see 6-0 Birmingham against 5-1 St. Louis, which is the conclusion we've all come to. Wow, what a game that's going to be. That's our Saturday slate. I want to thank you for hanging with us tonight. Go ahead and check the link in our description out. We got some brand new Springball Boulevard merch, if you can kind of see it here. You can go ahead, buy a tee, a hoodie, even a beer koozie for that beer snake. So check that out. We just broke down the St. Louis game. So I guess, Zook, let's roll right into the chat with the trigger man of the St. Louis Battlehawks, AJ McCarron. He leads the UFL in completion percentage and touchdowns, has 10 of them with just one pick this entire season. But above all, his St. Louis Battlehawks with a 4-1 start atop the XFL conference standings. Welcome back to Springball Boulevard, AJ McCarron. Thanks for joining us tonight, AJ.
Always, Matty.
So let's just get it out of the way. I lost the bet. You guys whooped our tail. And we're going full Battlehawks tonight. Mike Ryan from the Lebitard Show, if you're out there watching, here you go, buddy. I'm in Battlehawks Blue.
I love it.
I'm going to get destroyed on the internet for this, but ultimately it's Team XFL, right? So, this might,
that's great.
take it in, AJ. This might be the only time you see it.
Matty, you look good. Just go ahead and make the change.
Well, I'm a little lucky that the box at least cuts it off a little bit. See, there you go. All right, AJ. I got to say, without a doubt, your Battlehawks are the only team in the UFL that have seemed to get better each week, where other teams have had a bad game here or there or taken a step back. You guys have continued to progress. So let's kind of pick up right where we left off, which was, I guess, beginning of February, last time we had you on. Tough decision process. You decide to sign back with St. Louis ultimately and head to training camp in Arlington. And you were surrounded by the same coaching staff, a lot of the same teammates, some new faces as well. Did you identify anything different, whether it was good or bad, during those couple of weeks in camp heading into the season?
Well, I would say the biggest thing was probably, just the chemistry that we had as a team, because you had so many returning guys. So, I think that's always big in a spring league is however many guys, especially going into your second year, that you can bring back. So you do have chemistry. You do know, what guys you can lean on, your leaders, just the short training camp that you get, guys that have been through it, that were part of the team last year, help the process speed up. And so I would say that was a huge deal, especially for us offensively, was coming into camp and not having to put in the base plays that we did last year and spend so much time on that. It was really, let's hit the ground running and really get in deep into the offense and, plays that we've run before or some new plays. And so I really think that helped us a ton. Did it show in the first week versus Michigan? No. Which, again, those first games are always tough, especially playing an opponent that you've never played before. And then you see how they play on film versus everybody else, and that's not how they played us at all. They had played a bunch of man coverage in the USFL, and they came out versus us and really maybe gave us a handful of snaps of man. So it's kind of, helped us throughout this year is really breaking down other teams of, hey, they play all these other teams this way, and it's happened pretty much every week after that to where all of their stats against these other teams don't correlate with us. And so we've been getting, completely different defenses and schemes against us, from what we've been preparing for.
Yeah, and I figured that's kind of what they were trying to accomplish when it came to the crossover scrimmages. I think some of the XFL side was scrimmage and USFL side. Who did you guys have in the scrimmages in camp?
Yeah, we just scrimmaged Memphis, or had a joint practice with them, and then we did a scrimmage versus Birmingham. And the Memphis one, I did. AB really didn't want me having a chance of being around any contact, so I did 7-on-7, and he held me out of that. And then versus Birmingham, I was out of it completely, and stood on the sidelines and got to call in personnel and do some fun stuff like that. But yeah, those were the two teams.
Did they make any kind of like film available from the other scrimmages for you guys to at least have a little bit of preparation for week one, or was it just going in completely raw?
No, I mean, they did, but I mean, as you can always tell, I mean, teams don't ever show what they're actually going to do. So they're out there, even in the scrimmage, doing base stuff, defensively, most of the time, offensively as well. So it really didn't give us anything.
Right. Yeah, we're going to get into Houston here in a moment, but I kind of want to get into evaluating some other UFL teams here at the midseason point. Looking back at the 5 games that you played, who's the best defense that you guys have gone up against? And is there a player or maybe a couple of players that really presented a challenge for you offensively?
Yeah, I think, I still think DC is a great defense. Greg just, he makes the game, you see so many different looks. This last one, he did a good job of, when we were in empty, he went to his 3-3 stack type deal and made it look like cover 2, and then they brought 0 and got me, I think, twice on it. And then the third time we burned them, I stood in there, just knew I had to, take a shot, and got hit, but we completed it to Keem for a touchdown. So after that, he got out of it. So I would still say their defense. I think, San Antonio's defense is still great. I think I love playing against their linebackers. I thought they were, really good players, 15 and 11. And they, secondary wise, they still had good players. So I think there's a ton of talent out there on all teams. But I think, what makes DC special and tough at times, especially in the red zone, is just Greg and calling up his different looks that he does.
Yeah, and does it, I guess for you, does it change the fact this year, obviously going against these tough defenses with DC and San Antonio, you've been able to go up against a pretty damn good defense every day in practice. Has that kind of changed and raised the level of competition for the offense, you think, going against those guys?
Oh, 100%. I told, our D coordinator, Donnie Abrams, I told DA during camp, like, the amount of competition we have, even from when we were in camp standpoint, was from a secondary, and I like talking just about the secondary, but from a secondary standpoint, I thought we were much better than we were last year. So you could feel the competition. You could feel, how much better our secondary was as a whole this year. And so it's definitely helped a ton. And then I think it's really helped our O-line, because there was times, during camp where it's like, man, are we just playing that bad up front, or is our D-line that good? And, of course, you go through camp lulls where the defense just has you some days. So I think it was a mixture of both at the time, but the big boys up front for me have been playing great. I tell them every week, we win and lose based off them. So I'm super proud of how both of our offensive line and defensive line.
Yeah, and sticking with the theme of kind of evaluating the league at the midseason point here, outside of you guys, DC, and I guess maybe Arlington, everybody else has played multiple quarterbacks, and some of that hasn't been by choice, it's been by injury, but Birmingham is by design. What do you think, from your experience, are the pros and cons of rotating your starting quarterback game by game, and do you think that's a system that can work long term in the UFL?
I don't know. I've never been a fan of it. I guess it's easier if you're doing game by game, which that's what they seem to be doing more than I know early. It seemed like they started out where it was almost like possession, like a certain amount of possessions, but for each one. But it seems like they've gotten to where it's more, hey, this week you start, the next week he starts type deal, which I guess makes it easier. But listen, as a quarterback, like, I just,
I think we still got you.
am I still there?
Yeah, we still got
you. As a quarterback for me, it's tough for me to buy into playing two QBs because I always feel like, hey, if you feel like you need another guy to play to win, then I'm not your guy. So that's a personal thing for me, but everybody has their ways, and it seems to be working for Birmingham right now.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty interesting with them being 5-0, kind of playoff wise, how they'll handle that situation. But that'll be week 7 for you guys. We'll get into the Roughnecks this week. Anything specifically that you guys are focusing on, prepping for a defense that has been up and down at times?
Well, I think it's always about us. As cliche as it is to say, but that's been our saying this year. Is it's not about the opponent we're facing. It's really focusing on us and what we need to do to be successful. So, I know viewers and everybody wants to hear this amazing answer, but it's really just that simple. Like, if we go out and do what we're coached to do what we're supposed to do, execute when your number's called, like we're going to be in a good situation to win the ball game. So that's our deal, is just focusing on us and trying to dominate the game as much as possible.
Yeah, and speaking of you guys, is there an area or two maybe that you think has really improved from last season to this season? Everybody talks about the defense, the offensive line. Is there something internally that everybody seems to be aware of that has improved, that is showing the success this year, that would be better than last year?
Yeah, I think it starts, with the hiring of Gino Grakowski. I think Gino's been excellent, just from a communication standpoint, teaching guys technique, making sure, and on top of that, Mike, being his second year of playing center, has really amped up everybody else's play because he communicates great, whether it's the run, call, pass pro, like he does an excellent job. And Mike has been, the leader of that O-line when it comes to it. And then the O-line in general, being able to be dominant in the run game and the passing game has allowed us to, spread the offense out, run it when we need to, throw it however we want. Like, I would say that's the biggest jump from last year, is the offensive line communication, the offensive line play, and then us being able to run the ball this year and do it effectively week after week has been, awesome to see.
Right. So you guys are headed back to the Dome this Saturday. There's been a couple of great crowds there. I thought it was a great crowd in D.C., over 16,000 out in Audi Field for that one. So with some of this crowd noise that's been going on, I've wondered about these walkies that seem to have appeared, the radios that the coaches are using. Has that been harder or easier for you guys to communicate? Has it made a difference at all?
Well, I tell you, I've had more issues out of the speaker system this year than ever before. And they say we went to the same system that the NFL uses, but I don't know if it's not having the right Wi-Fi connection throughout the stadium because you're just a lower budget stadium. So a lot of these stadiums aren't, used to carrying I guess the amount of Wi-Fi that it needs to connect. But there's been a ton this year and more than I can remember last year, to be honest with you, of not getting the play call. I know Bruce likes to joke and say that I hear his play call and that I just don't want to run it, so I end up changing it myself. But I wish that was the case. Like, hell, I'd tell him then. But it's crazy. There's been multiple times in games where he's calling out the play. It's not coming through my system, but the other guys, receivers that have the headset, they can hear the play call. So, like, I'm sitting at the huddle, like, doing this, telling Bruce to come on, like, give me the call. And then all of a sudden I can hear it coming from somebody's helmet. And so I usually look at the clock, take a quick look, depending if I feel like I have enough time to ask them what the call is. And I ask the right person that can spit it out in time. And then if not, if I feel like it's going to be a long play call or they're stuttering or whatever, not being able to spit it out, I just call my own play. And Bruce trusts me to be able to do that and get us in the right, situation. But I've had more troubles this year out of this headset than I can, ever remember.
So what is it? They can talk to you guys up till 15 seconds on the play clock, and then it shuts off? Is that what it is?
No, they can talk the whole time.
Oh,
if
they can
wanted.
talk the whole time. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
that's
Bruce,
an NFL rule. I think the 15 one.
Yeah, that's NFL rule. But right. Bruce for me just gives me the call, and then he just lets me go.
Yeah, I was going to wonder if that opens things up for you when you guys get into 2-minute or 4-minute or something like that, where now it's, we got to go, no timeouts, whatever the situation is. Does that really open it up for you? And are you getting more comfortable with you and Bruce going back and forth and kind of letting you go in that situation?
Yeah, I tell you, it's one thing when it comes to 4-minute, I let Bruce call, and I even like that he trusts me, like even in 4-minute, to be able to call some pass plays and know that I've played enough ball. Like, hey, if the guy's not wide open and I feel like it's going to be iffy, like worst case scenario, I just take a sack, and so the clock keeps running. But we practiced it a ton. That 2-minute. I mean, even last year, a lot of 2-minute situations, he just allows me to call it, which helped me a ton last year. Just, really thinking about personnel, whether we're in 10, whether we're in 5 wide, 11, whatever it is, that's really helped me think about, all right, these are the route combinations I like. These are the concepts that I want to get to. What is this guy good at running? So I lean towards that. So when it comes to 2-minute, a lot of times Bruce just lets me, hey, you got it, and take it and go with it. But he's also mixed in some to where he calls every once in a while. Like if we go out of bounds and he really wants a certain call, he'll kind of come in and give me a play. But he's always, that's why I love Bruce to death. Like he allows me to just play. Like he calls it. If I don't feel great about it, then I'm able to change it. And that's one thing that I really love. And the fact that he trusts me that much means a lot.
Zook and I have talked a lot about Brandon Silvers, and I know he's your buddy, and he comes in and kind of serves as a second offensive coordinator, second set of eyes for you out there. We talked a lot about when you guys play San Antonio. Obviously, that's the team and the staff that he played for. so he knows the ins and outs of their operation as well as a lot of other teams in the XFL. What has Brandon been like as an asset to you guys, and how important was that? I think he signed the night before you did. How important was that to you to have him on your sideline?
Well, it's huge. And me and B are great friends off the field. I mean, he's one of my best friends. We spend all off season going at each other on the golf course and betting a little bit on there. But I mean, we do. We're roommates here. We have a house together, so it was big. AB called me. Our GM Dave Bowler called me and asked about, hey, what do you think? And I was like, well, hell yeah. I wish I would have asked me sooner. I would have just mentioned him and said, go get him. But B's been unbelievable, coming back to the sidelines, just kind of, if he sees something, reminding me of things, just trying to talk me through the game a little bit and remind me of certain factors. And, Manny's been the same. Manny's been great when it comes to that. Both of them just coming up with ideas on, hey, maybe we could get to this. Hey, if you see this. So that's been great as well.
Yeah, just a couple more here for you, AJ. Really appreciate your time. I know we've had just a couple of rule changes, not really too much. I mean, they moved the 4th and 15 up to the 4th and 12. And then really the kickoff is the main thing, right? How do you feel that's affected your field position as an offense? Seems like a lot of time teams are getting the ball at midfield or even plus territory.
Yeah, and hell, from a selfish standpoint, it kind of kills our offensive stats because, Darius has been so great. Kyle Caskey, our special teams coordinator, running backs coach, has been unbelievable for this to be his first year as the special teams guys. Never done it before. Has been in the NFL for a long time. Was with me in Cincinnati all 4 years up there. Then was in Jacksonville, Detroit, other places. So I'll tell you, he does an excellent job. That's another roommate of mine. Caskey is, and him staying up late at night and coming up with schemes. But yeah, from a selfish standpoint, it kills the offense because we're in such good field position when we get the ball that your stats aren't as high as you'd like, but it's been awesome. I don't mind now from a safety standpoint. Is it safer than what we had last year? Probably not, because guys are just having to run down, 70 yards to go smack somebody, else's head. So I don't know how that goes for the league on the safety standpoint, but from us on a getting the ball across midfield standpoint has really helped us out.
Yeah, and I feel like we talk about all the time here, maybe two things that might change going forward are the kickoff going back. Obviously, the NFL has adopted it, so it makes it an obvious choice if it works there, which I think it will. And then the start date, right? Starting here kind of in the midst of NHL and NBA playoffs. We had the Masters. Obviously, we had a March Madness to deal with. So I think that maybe moving the start date back might benefit next year going forward. I don't know if you've heard anything about that or anything, but
I haven't, but I'm with you. I think the start date of Springball needs to go back to what the XFL had it as, because you're not fighting. And so another thing that nobody wants to talk about is you give the guys more time to actually get into a OTA camp rather than now. You're not going to be able to sign till the championship's over, and at that point, you're getting in with them on their break in June, and then they come back in July. Or I should say, actually, you come back at the end of July. So you're really only going to be there for actual mandatory mini camp, which makes it tougher to, for guys to make teams. So I think that's going to be tough on guys coming out this year. And I think if the league can move the start date back, up to what it was originally at last year, I think will help guys and get more guys into the league.
Yeah, I know that's a grind you've done. Talking to Ben DiNucci, he said playing 12 straight months of football, I could write a book about this. And obviously him coming out of XFL even had a couple of months at least to adjust. Now it's going to be right up against it. So I think it's important you bring that up. Kind of speaking of that, you mentioned to me you're the player rep for St. Louis when it comes to the Union. How has that kind of been? What has that experience been like? And do you feel like you've been able to have your voice heard and make a difference when it comes to the big picture of this thing?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think Dartez and the other guys in the PA do a great job of communicating. I try to stay out of it as much as possible. Just I stay so busy, whether it's watching film, up here bugging the hell out of Bruce, coming up with play ideas. I tell you, the most interesting thing is being the player rep is getting the list of fines from all the guys that get fined every week. So luckily, I've been able to stay off that. Uniform infractions, whatever it is. But that's probably the most interesting thing. This past week, the list was actually super long than when I got the list today of fines. So, but I think, from your voice being heard, coming up with ideas and how we can approach the league, whether we do stay as the union, which we are now, or we don't, but whenever the next vote is. But no, I think it's been great, and I think Dartez has done a great job of communicating with all the guys that are part of it.
Well, I just hope I don't get fined for wearing this tonight. This might be an equipment violation for me, AJ. Lastly, before we get you out of here, as the face of the UFL, go ahead and give your pitch to NFL and college football fans as to why they should spend an afternoon watching a UFL game.
Well, there's our GM right there.
What's up, Dave?
I think, listen, I wish the league would stop planning or do some more research on planning our home games, and we're having to battle the Cardinals or everything else at the same time that we play, so we could get even more people. I'm a big believer in whoever your biggest drawers are from an attendance standpoint, like they should be on the primetime games, because when you do show those stadiums, like whether it's an Audi Field or hell, even San Antonio, Birmingham, possibly. I know they've kind of been back and forth on attendance, but especially us, like I would like to see the league try to put all the highest attendance stadiums in primetime games, because when you show it on TV, now you show people are in the stands. Maybe you draw some more excitement to it, especially the Dome. Like you should want to show that on TV as much as possible, because that could just get somebody that's maybe flipping through the channels and sees everybody in the stands, and it's like, damn, that's a huge crowd right there. And then they become a fan, and then they talk to somebody else. So I think that's how you continue to build the league and get people behind it. But I would say it's just a different experience. Like there's a ton of talent on the field. I think, by merging the two spring leagues has really brought the level of play up a ton. I think the coaching's been great from all teams. So I think it's just a fun deal. And hell, if you love football, you like watching football, come be a part of it. It's definitely a cool experience and fun to maybe, if you're in that city where you have a team, to take your kids there, take some friends there, and go have a good time.
Yeah, I like what Coach Beck said about, we had 31,000 when the Cardinals were playing. That's incredible. I mean, you can tell the appetite for football is there, even over other major league sports. And you talk about like a primetime game. No primetime games for Audi Field this year, I thought was interesting. DC gets rocking, especially at night. And I think just looking at the schedule now, week 7, when you guys head to Birmingham, which could be an opportunity for a big draw as a 3 p.m. Central game. So I know, like, you come out of the SEC and you were used to playing the big game at 3:30 every week. So even if it's not prime time, I think we just got to get people used to, like, a certain viewing window. I kind of like the standalone games. There's been a lot of regionality when it comes to 2 games at once. I think maybe they try to get away from that a little bit.
They got to lose that. I thought that was not to, knock Fox or anything, but Fox has so many channels, whether it's one's on Fox, one's on FS1. Like, I think that's one thing, just from trying to think about the league and help the league grow. Like, they got to find a way to where games aren't being played at the same time on the same channel, so people can view it and go through back and forth to each game, to where you're not just stuck on one coverage, especially with the Birmingham game last week going on the same time as I think it was San Antonio and Arlington. It was 89% coverage compared to 11% coverage. So I think that makes it tough. We got to find a way to, and listen, I know Daryl and Russ and Miss Danny, like, everybody's, I understand that, all the things that go on to some extent behind closed doors, and all the people that are involved with it, whether it's ESPN, Fox, whoever. But yeah, I think you definitely got to figure out a way to get these games on at different times, figure out the right windows to play them in. Like, I don't believe we should be playing at 11:30 on any game day, to where, especially not at home, when the Cardinals are playing at the exact same time. So I think your biggest stadiums, like I said a minute ago, I think you got to put those stadiums in primetime games and really sell and show the type of crowds that these places can, draw, when you put them in a perfect situation to draw the biggest crowd possible. And that makes it fun for both teams to play in that atmosphere, right? Like, whether you're away team or home team, and it helps it to where your viewership from a TV standpoint is probably going to be higher too, if you can figure out these time slots.
And the numbers back that up. Week 2 against Arlington, 7 p.m. game Central Time. You guys pull over 1 million viewers on ABC, right up against the Final Four. So there are people that want to watch football and will watch it, even if it is the UFL, over basketball, over hockey, over golf. It just has to be there at the right time. And I think once we get back to the February start, the windows will start to open up a little bit. I know there's a lot of competition with different networks, but I will say, if you are going to play 4 games at the same time like the NFL, just give me a call. I'll do the Red Zone channel. I'll host it. I'll bounce back and forth throughout the highlights, and we can do it that way. That'd be the fun way to do it. But that is AJ McCarron. They'll be going up against the Houston Roughnecks on Saturday. You can catch that one on ABC, I believe. So thank you, AJ. Appreciate it for coming on again, and we love to have you here on the Boulevard.
Always. Appreciate you, Matty.
All right, here we go. So, let's go 11. Let's go 11. We're gonna go Spider 2.
Can't hear you. What?
Spider 2.
What?
Let's go. Hurry up. Spider 2 Y banana. No. Can. GTFO. We got him. I could call plays, or I don't know. Who's the quarterback and who's the OC in this situation? Drop us a chat. Who would be calling the play? I think Zook would actually be calling the play, and I'd be here trying to run the play. That's pretty much how it goes. But yeah, interesting to hear from AJ. It's news to me, Zook, that's what they used in the USFL last year. I guess I didn't watch enough to know that. Shame on me. But yeah, the walkie-talkies not working out to perfection. But hey, it's UFL forever. Let's roll right into Saturday afternoon, or Sunday afternoon. Jeez, I'm sleeping over here. It's on a Thursday night. Let's roll into Sunday afternoon. It's our second of 2 conference crossovers this week. Renegades at the Panthers. Hometown Cats favored by 4. Total is our lowest of the weekend here at 42. Forecast looking much better for Jake Bates, who didn't quite look as automatic outside as he has inside Ford Field. Let's go ahead and start with that Michigan offense here. And there's an obvious edge. It's the winning formula really for the Panthers all season has been running the ball, stopping the run. And that's a pretty easy formula to win with across all levels of football, which head coach Mike Nolan has to absolutely love that they've been able to do that. But it does strike me a little strange that offensive coordinator Marcel Belfay has been okay with it. I mean, traditionally, he runs more of an air raid style. And we looked at his offense coming into the season and thought they were going to air this thing out a lot. But kudos to him for being able to adapt. They end up with the number 2 rushing offense as it stands right now. 111 yards a game for the Panthers on the ground. And that could be a winning strategy against the Arlington Renegades, who are the standalone worst rush defense in the UFL and might be one of the worst rush defenses in spring football ever. They're the only team to give up over 5 yards a carry this season. Only team to give up an average of over 100 a game on the ground. And think about some of the running back performances that we've had against this defense, even going back to week 1 with C.J. Marable. Broke out, had his best game there. Mateo Durant, who's now on the IR for St. Louis, looked like he was about to run away with the UFL rushing title in week 2. And even John Lovett. Last week, nobody could tackle the guy. So, I mean, this is an opportunity for both Wes Hills and Matt Colburn to have some of their best games. And they're also very poor at stopping mobile quarterbacks, right? We saw Jordan Ta'amu, just run right up the middle, QB draw on them time and time again. So I think Danny Etling for Michigan has some of that mobility in him, and he might be able to gash them for a few runs to make things worse for the Renegades. Will Clark has not practiced this week. He's probably the best edge rusher they have on that line. Jalen Redmond has been out a couple weeks. Doesn't look like he's coming back anytime soon on the interior. So I'd expect a heavy dose here of Hills and Colburn. A nice little 1-2 punch the Michigan backfield has going there. We saw it in full display last week. If Arlington, if they do step up and stop the run here, which would surprise me, then I do have some concerns about Michigan's effectiveness in the pass game. Just for the Panthers, just 3 passing touchdowns this season compared to 10 on the ground. That's a little too much imbalance than what I'm comfortable with. And especially when you look at those 3 passing touchdowns, they've all been explosive plays of like 50 yards or more, which tells me that the red zone pass game has been non-existent for this offense. And anytime they get inside the 20, they're going to run the ball, which, you don't want to be one-dimensional there. But I still think that the Panthers can establish the run. I think they will establish the run. So I do give a pretty good sized edge. And when you really look at this matchup, that's kind of what stands out, right? Really good rushing offense, really bad rush defense. Now, it doesn't always work that way. But I would be willing to bet that Mike Nolan and Marcel Belfay are going to go to the run early and often in this one in Ford Field. When it comes to the Renegade offense against the Panthers D, I'm really getting tired of begging Bob Stoops to just try to start Lindsey Scott Jr. Right? And I get it. You have to ask yourself at some point, though, why did we take this guy, number 1 overall, ahead of Ja'Cour Pearson, if we can't even start him on an 0-5 team? What have you got to lose? Even if you win out, you're not making the playoffs at 5-5. Not in this conference. They thought they made it at 4-6 last season. That is not happening this year. So I would love to know some things about the Renegades. Why'd they cut Juice Ellison? That's the big question. They cut him, and then a couple weeks later, their in-state rival, their in-conference rival, picks him up, and he gashes him. 84 yards on 7 carries for Juice. That's a kick in the pants. Meanwhile, in your run game, you've got Davion Smith, 3.2 yards a carry, and much of the same last season there. So they haven't had a run play of over 16 yards all season. How, when you have a quarterback who ran for 3,000 yards and like 35-plus touchdowns in his career in Lindsey Scott? But they stick with Luis Perez, which is fine. He's leading the league in passing. It's not his fault. But you got to try something here. Things aren't going to get any easier this week against a solid Michigan defense. And they did take a big loss. Defensive tackle Daniel Wise out for the year. That's tough. He was a force up front. So life a little easier for Arlington this week maybe. But Michigan can get to the quarterback. 7 sacks against Memphis last week. They're very good on third down. I've been impressed with the job that Colin Bauer has been able to do here. They stopped the run. They only allow 71 a game on the ground. So, yeah, I kind of lean Michigan defense. And even with that edge, though, that I'm giving to Michigan's offense and their defense, 4 is kind of too much here for me to lay the points. I don't want to. I think I am going to go Panthers straight up here, Zook. I do think that there's probably still some truth to the fact that until Arlington beats somebody, you don't want to play them. I don't know. Coaches probably wouldn't agree with that. That's more of like a broadcaster sentiment, trying to create storyline maybe. But do you want to play Arlington down the stretch? They feel to me like it's this team that is not going to have any pressure. They're going to play loose. At this point, it's all about film and you know, nobody believes that they're going to win a game and just all the weight off their shoulders of being locked in a tight playoff race and maybe it's not that. Maybe there is pressure to win here, but I don't know. You don't want to become the victim to the Arlington Renegades getting their first win. It reminds me of DC last season. They became the victim to the Orlando Guardians getting their first win and getting that triumph. You don't want to be in that spot, especially when it could keep you out of the playoffs. So, will Arlington get to the level that they played in the playoffs last year at some point this season? I don't know. I haven't seen anything from them to believe that they will. Even last week, they head to the fourth quarter, up 10, or no. They're head of the fourth quarter. It's a 15-15 game, right? They lose by 10. It seemed like they had no plan in that 2-minute offense. They're just dinking and dunking it down the field. So I'm going Michigan here. Zook, who you got?
Shocker. I have a shocker.
This is the week.
This is it.
This is the week.
We're taking Renegades. Now, I'll preface this with...
Send in the trainer. Someone needs some help for a brain injury.
I will preface this with... I will not put any dollars on this at all. Zero.
Yeah.
Zero money.
They're still the Renegades. Take them straight up, but you don't bet them.
However, I think this is their spoiler week.
Yeah.
I think this is their first win. It's not a popular pick, right? But for some reason, my gut tells me this is going to happen.
They got to win sometime, right?
This is the one. Because this is huge for the playoff race, too, in the USFL division.
Yeah, it's some pressure there.
And I think, I don't know, maybe it's just a sucker in me wanting XFL to win.
I tried
one of
this.
these.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Maybe I'm a week late. I did say, and I'll own up to it last week, that Arlington would beat San Antonio. And I thought that this would be part of a 3-game win streak that they would then go on. I believe they have Michigan and Memphis coming up here. So, yeah, 2 winnable games. I think Memphis will be a lot easier than Michigan for sure. But Zook, going with the Renegades. I think, you know what? If I had a guarantee that Lindsey Scott Jr. was starting, I'd also pick them. But I that's probably not going to happen.
Did my comms come through there? Did you hear that? I picked them.
You guys hear somebody? So to cap off the weekend, we got a rematch on the XFL conference side here. We first saw these two teams get together way back in week 1, which seems like a distant memory now, but it's the Brahmas and the Defenders, basically a pick 'em here. San Antonio, the short favorite at 1. Some shops get them at 1.5. Total 42.5. But check the forecast. DC Sunday looks miserable. 90% chance of rain throughout the day. Kind of remind you of that XFL North Championship games. Hey, that's nothing the beer snake can't handle. Nothing builds character more than standing in the rain for your team, drinking beers. Got to do what you got to do, right? So let's lead off with the Brahmas offense against DC's defense. This is a rematch, but it's going to have a different feel, right? This is totally different on this side of the ball because back in week 1, it was Chase Garbers pulling the trigger for this offense. Now it's Quentin Dormady. Quentin Dormady. My worst nightmare. You ruined our perfect season. And I hyped up this St. Louis game a lot last week. It fell flat on my face. But if you're looking for bulletin board material, we're coming for you, Q. You're a good guy. You've been on the show before. But I'm praying on your downfall this week, buddy. I need that one back. That was a 37-36 win on April Fool's Day, might I add. The sickest April Fool's joke anyone's ever played on me. My team was 7-0, and I lose to the Guardians. So it's time to get some payback. They can do that. The defensive line was probably the lone bright spot against St. Louis for DC. They actually held St. Louis to under 100 rushing, which nobody had done, surprisingly, in the last 3 games that the Battlehawks played. I thought Malik Fisher was a guy that popped off the tape. He was excellent. I mean, Fisher, 3 sacks, forced fumble recovery. It's not going to be easy this week against a San Antonio offensive line who has only allowed 5 sacks in 5 games. That is insane. Andre Gurode, hats off to you. The San Antonio offensive line coach might be in the running for assistant coach of the year here. What a group. And they have 3 day 1 starters on the IR up front. So to absolutely nobody's surprise, AJ Smith and his offense throwing it on 62% of play calls. They did lean on the run, though, a little bit last week. They racked up 175 on the ground with the 2-headed monster of Lovett and Ellison, who I love. I love Lovett, and I love Ellison. I think they are dynamic back there, and this is the type of game where a lot of DC fans are going to scratch their head thinking, how the hell don't we have one of these guys? Like go get somebody. These guys were both free agents at one point. Quentin Dormady did toss 3 interceptions against Arlington last week. That was kind of a red flag, but I guess one of them wasn't really on him, tip ball. By the way, San Antonio signs Jaden DeLaura at quarterback. Anyone remember that name? If you watch college football, you do. Started for the Arizona Wildcats. I watched so many games. I watched him come back. I think it was a game against, was it Washington or Oregon in his junior year, and they were down. They were up, they were like a 20-point dog in that game, and they knock off a top 10 team, and DeLaura just went absolutely crazy for that offense. They played Mississippi State last year. He had a heroic run that was called short. I put it on my Twitter if you want to check it out, but he has had some controversy with some sexual assault allegations that people are talking about. Nothing has, I don't think, come of it. They were back in his high school days, and we'll continue to monitor that. But yeah, Jaden DeLaura is a new signing for the Brahmas, and yeah, that is interesting. I don't know, but if you watch him play, he's a gamer, and if you ask Arizona fans, they'll probably tell you that when he went out with an injury and the backup came in, they actually got better because he plays insane. I mean, he plays where it's either going to be a 90-yard touchdown or a pick six every drop back, but it is an interesting signing. The rain, if it does come down, it's probably going to help DC here because the Brahmas will throw it less in that situation, and DC is the worst-ranked pass defense in the league now for the 2nd year in a row. They still went 9-1 with that last year. I have no idea how. It just thank Greg Williams for being able to get sacks and takeaways. And how about DJ Swearinger release? That's hard pill to swallow. Hakeem Butler might have ended a career here. And hats off to DJ Swearinger, has done more than enough in his football career over the last 11 years. Just a guy that a lot of people will have a lot to say about, and was 32 years old, playing out there, starting at safety all 5 games for DC, and he gets cut mid-season. He said on his Instagram he would have loved to finish the season, but enter Kentrell Bryce, who started for DC all of last year and was cut. And I thought that was a surprising cut. He's now coming back to add some depth to that safety room, along with Deontay Anderson and Santos Ramirez, and I think you're getting Monte Nicholson back as well. So slight edge to the Brahmas offense. I do expect DC's defense to bounce back, and they'll give up half of the 45 points that they gave up last week. Running through the DC offense, you would think these rain games would technically benefit Fred Keiss and his scheme. You saw DC grind teams down with Abram Smith in these rain spots last year. I don't know if they could do that this year. The O-line is certainly going to have to step up. And I know there were some concerns from Coach Keiss. When I went back and rewatched the broadcast about the offensive line, he was telling them to calm down. They're missing their assignment. Seemed like they weren't on the same page. They definitely didn't run block well, but I'll give it to them in pass protection, only 2 sacks. So Jordan seems to be staying upright. He's only taken 9 sacks this season, and on the contrary, Case Cookis has taken 25. So they've done an all right job. That has a lot to do with Jordan's mobility as well. So, a couple of things that must improve for the DC defenders to have a chance here. You got to do better than 3.4 yards a carry. And when you do score in the red zone, you have to start getting these 2-point tries. I think most of you would be surprised to hear DC on the 2-pointers this year, 3 for 9. That's not going to cut it. There's 12 points right there that could have swung some of these huge close games that they were in. And I don't know how they're so good in their red zone offense, but they just can't convert these 2s. And then I thought, oh wait, De'Ara King. That's what it is. You could quantify missing Abram Smith to less production in the run game. You could quantify missing De'Ara King to less production on 2-point conversions. It's just how it goes. They didn't find guys to replace these 2. DC didn't score a touchdown in week 1 on San Antonio. They did have 2 called back for penalties. So ultimately, I don't think we're going to get the weird stuff that we got in week 1, right? I don't see the Brahmas launching a 70-yard touchdown pass on a fake field goal to a center. If that happens again, I'm done. We're not having a show. I think this will be an old-school slugfest type of game. DC trying to run it. Brahmas with that monster front 7. You think about going head-to-head with guys like Devontae Beckett and Jordan Williams, who AJ just pointed out in the interview. Much like the DC defense, I think the offense will find their rhythm and bounce back a little this week. I expect right around 100 rushing yards, maybe a little more when you add in Jordan. But San Antonio's pass rush, 17 sacks. That's second best in the league. That's that side of the ball. It's really tough to find an edge when you look at these 2. I know San Antonio defense probably better on paper, and that's what Zook's going to tell me when he picks the Brahmas. But I don't know. DC's not going to have 2 punts blocked and throw an interception in the first 8 minutes of the game and spot San Antonio 17 points like they did. That's just not going to happen. That was the problem last week. So you got to be better on 3rd and long. You got to find some vertical passing threats. Maybe it's Kelvin Harmon. So DC is the pick, as always, for me here, Zook. I'll always pick them in a. Can't get swept by San Antonio. Cannot do it. Not at this point with your back against the wall. And you really can't lose twice at home. This is a bounce back spot. It has to be. Right? This is the perfect bounce back spot. Let me cope.
Whatever you want to call it. Brahmas. Easy pick.
Have you picked DC once this year? I mean, come on. Have you picked us once? I think you did against Houston, probably.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, we won that game.
Here's the thing. I was actually kind of really in between on this one. Because, yeah, DC at home, that crowd, I think it's going to be a problem. You got a little communication issues going on, as we talked about before.
Some of the rain. Ugly it up.
But the rain is what led me to pick the Brahmas. And because they have a better run game.
Yeah, that is true.
In the thick of it.
Better defense, too.
Run game is going to win this. And they have a better one. And they have a better run game and a better defense. So it was tough.
Right. That's in your opinion here. If DC loses to San Antonio, is it possible for them to play worse than they did against St. Louis? If they do lose, is this close for you?
Oh, it's definitely close.
It's close. Okay.
Yeah, it's close. I mean, San Antonio doesn't even have close of the offense that St. Louis does.
Yeah.
They don't have as many weapons. I just think run game wise, they have the edge, and they do have a better defense. But they both give up a ton of they both give up a ton of yards defensively. It's just who's better red zone defensively.
Yeah, and if DC does walk out of this one 2-4, I think the one thing that definitely won't happen is I don't think you'll come into week 7 thinking, oh, they took a massive step back from St. Louis. I think this could be our first UFL overtime, right? I don't think we've had one this season.
No,
I don't
we
think
haven't.
so.
We were close,
right?
but we didn't have one.
This kind of game could be it. I mean, it is going to come down to like 20-19, something crazy like that.
But this is must win for DC.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
They have to win. If they don't win, they're done.
Yeah, you cannot have the crap going on like it was in week 1 where you got guys spitting on each other and ejections and that game sucked. I never want to watch that game again.
They got a lot to clean up.
Yeah.
I've said this quite a few times. Even though I hate DC, they're not a bad team. There's a few things going on per game. If they can get that cleaned up, they can get the coaching right. Time management. They can win games.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they can't win this game. I just think that they won't.
Yeah, and if you want to chirp me like everybody does in the comments about, oh, you're a homer and you're always going to pick DC, listen to Anthony Becht and AJ McCarron. AJ literally just said DC was still the best defense that they faced all season. So, bite me. It's our 2024 Battle of the Brands Tour, and we are back for episode 4. Our last 2 tour stops, some great finishes, came right down to the end. We had San Antonio storming back to shock Memphis in week 2. You remember that one? And how about Birmingham had a walk-off winner against DC when I was there in week 4. So, again, the Battle of the Brands Tour exclusively XFL versus USFL crossover games with the 2 sides right now deadlocked at 4-4. This week, Zook, we are headed back to the Battle Dome. St. Louis hosting Houston. And no, I will not be wearing Battlehawks blue. You had enough of that. I'm never doing that again. But I am going to represent Team XFL here. Listen, only 9 crossover games left when you add the championship. Win them all. Just sweep them the rest of the way. That's what we want to see. I'm sure the St. Louis fans are going to be fired up in this one after what they saw last week, right? They exercised the demons. Couldn't beat DC. Now you did. This is a huge step forward for this organization. So looking forward to another great crowd in the football city of St. Louis, Missouri. See you Saturday. Best bets time. DC money line. That's all I got.
Homer.
Under 47.5 in Houston and St. Louis. I do think the 2 offensive linemen that are out for the Battlehawks are going to allow the Roughnecks to rush the passer. I also think Houston's offense is dismal. They can't run the ball, and they're bad in the red zone and on third down. They don't have really anybody besides Sinet that's like really that talented. So I like the under here, even if St. Louis does score like mid-20s. So we're going there. I'm also taking the over 43 in Birmingham and Memphis. This is a game that was 47 last time they played. I think the Stallions offense has only gotten better, and the Showboats defense has only gotten worse. So, but Case Cook
it was under 47, right?
No, they had, are you asking me what the over-under was when they played the first
time? Well, you said it was 47.
We had 47 total points.
What hit?
I think the over hit in that one for sure. Yeah, that was like 41 actually. So, I see it going over again because I think Case Cook has a couple of things to say. Might not be so happy with how the season's going, him getting benched. He gets a week to rest. He's back. He's going to be slinging it around, and I think they could score, like I said, 17 or 18 points on Birmingham. So I'm going the over. Those are my 3 plays of the week to recap. DC money line, under 47.5, Houston, St. Louis, and over 43. Birmingham, Memphis. Who you got, Zook?
I'm taking a total
in the rain.
in the rain. I think this
Yeah.
is going to be exciting.
Wow.
And the reason being is DC needs to win this game. They have to. And I think they're going to do everything they can offensively to try to light it up. I still like San Antonio to win, but I think it's going to be close in the end, and we're going to see like a 27-25 game. That's my prediction.
I think that's why I saw your ears perk up when I said DC was 3 of 9 on 2-point conversions, right? You're like, oh.
Yeah, but I wanted to jump in on that. Like, why the hell are they not going for one?
Yeah, because they never went for one last year.
Might as well just go for one or go for 3.
This is Fred Keiss. You know what it is? He wants breathing room for the RPO because that's all they're going to run.
I get it, but they don't have the same run pass option as they did last year.
No De'Ara King.
That's what we keep on talking about. And then the surprise of the evening. Ponies minus 12. Giddy up.
I quit.
So
really put a horse. Did I just hear a horse?
Yeah, you heard it.
That wasn't the dog.
Come on, I'm sick. Don't make me laugh.
You're gonna scare the dog.
I don't.
We haven't had Piper on the show, but I just heard her come down. Here she comes.
I can't be coughing on screen like I did last Sunday. Stop. Don't make me laugh.
Stallions in the stable. Well, actually, they're not in the stable this week.
So
12. Out of your mind.
I know, and it was 11-5, and I was like, I think they're two touchdown favorite.
Yeah.
And this is an easy play.
With Corral.
My only reservation is what you said in the fourth quarter that they start playing their backups.
Oh yeah, like they did. And well, when I had the under last week, that thank God they did.
So
because that's how it is.
Yeah, you heard the horse.
Yeah, I would love to know. Like, I know we're sitting here live, and I would really just love to know if Matt Corral was starting. We don't have it yet, so I think he is. I would bet he is. I kind of know what Skip Holtz is doing here. At least I'm speculating that I do. All right, for the producer, director, and
what do you know? What?
See, like you can't play a horse. The horse, TPG. I'm so sorry, man. I almost closed the show without you.
Matt Corral. Corral has gotten the short end of the stick with Birmingham's quarterback rotation as he started 2 games against teams in playoff contention in DC and Michigan, whereas Martinez got the start against 2 of the worst teams in the league. But Corral will get his tune-up game this week as he faces off against a Memphis defense who gives up the most points per game and makes whatever quarterback they play look good. Corral has massive upside this week as the Stallions' offense seems to be firing on all cylinders as they look to have a repeat performance of their 33-14 beatdown of Memphis back in Week 3. Start Matt Corral. Sit him. Hakeem Butler. Hakeem the Dream had a breakout performance last week with 147 yards and 2 touchdowns. Butler has racked up over 18 targets over the past 2 weeks, but he faces a Roughnecks defense who is second best in the league against the pass, only allowing 180.6 yards per game. Coming in at 9,700, Butler is the second highest priced receiver, and I don't think he is worth the money to roster in your lineup this week. Sit Hakeem Butler. Sleeper, Siosi Mariner. Mariner enters Week 6 with a very favorable matchup as he faces off against a defense who many analysts claim is Swiss cheese. He has racked up 91 yards on 12 targets over the past 3 weeks and had the highest snap count out of all Panthers receivers against Memphis. Danny Etling brings new life to this Panthers offense, and I am confident he will look to get Mariner the ball after targeting him 6 times last week. Sleeper, Siosi Mariner.
And I was just talking about Matt Corral. You and your sound effects, Zook. Blame you. I am going to self-impose a punishment on myself as we close out here. And when we go to that shot, I'm going to take a lap. I owe a lap. The People's Gambler. I mean, he's on point. Start him, sit him, sleeper, looking great yet again here in Week 6. Now for the producer, director, and owner of Studio Z, Chris Zook. I'm Matty Fresh. Hope you enjoyed our interview with AJ McCarron. AJ, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you to Brian Stahl, the Director of Communications for the St. Louis Battlehawks, for setting that up. And we'll see you guys on Saturday in St. Louis. If we don't catch you then, see you Thursday or Sunday for a recap. And always remember, all right, I'm taking a lap. Good night.